Can anyone offer one storyline about the Leafs that doesn't involve trading Kessel? Fire Horachuk! Woo! Are you just gonna get hammered? Get me a toaster. Magic Angel Robot from Winnipeg! What the hell are you talking about? This team is ruining my life! Leafs lose 6-2 to the Washington Capitals, meaning the Leafs lose their first game under Peter Horachuk. Well, at least with him at the helm. Stomping on the bench at the helm. Boy, is this guy in for a fun ride. Welcome to the jungle, my friend. So, what do we talk about with this game? Because I know a lot of you are expecting a freak out. A few things with that. One, we have just hit the halfway mark, and if I keep freaking out, I'm gonna have a stroke. You know how many times I've shot one of these and then left the room with a headache? Hell, the intro for these things involves me banging my head on metal. And the other thing is, the Leafs just fired their coach, which I wanted them to do. And did I not say that I was happy to be the Toronto Maple Leafs fool? Well, I'm sitting here going, oh, well, it's their first game under Horachuk, you know, you gotta give them a chance. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, do I actually feel that, or am I just telling myself that I feel that? No, I genuinely feel that, and that's why I am hopeless. Alright, let's talk about the game. So the Leafs outpossessed Washington, so there's a nice positive. And I mean, that is a nice positive, but they're also the home team. They should be outpossessing the other team. And they lost, so that's no good. It wasn't a good game for the Leafs. I do think it was better than the score showed. It's a tie game, 1-1. Great. Leafs make a huge mistake that costs them with a short-handed goal. Now it's a 2-1 Caps lead. And then very shortly after that, a huge fluke of a goal goes in off Cody Franzen's stick, and now it's a 2-goal lead. Remember what I said about shot attempts? Sometimes you score stupid goals like the one Brooks Laich scored in this one. And good on him. Smith scores, brings the Leafs within 1. Johansson scores again 42 seconds later, says screw you. Eric Ferris scores another one in the 3rd, and Alex Ovechkin, I mean, it's an empty netter. The Leafs lose 6-2. Was it the absolute 4-goal ass-kicking that it looks like on paper? I don't think so, no. It also wasn't pretty, and the Capitals got 2 points and the Leafs got none. So nobody should be happy regardless of how the game was played. End of story. There was one positive though. There was a story on Sportsnet. Some of the role players on the Leafs were calling out the Leafs' big stars. And there's been a lot of talk about Phil Kessel, and don't you worry, I'm gonna get to Phil Kessel. You know, sometimes you hear a role player or a veteran, you know, he spoke up in the dressing room, and it's like, so what? Oh yeah, go on, tell me about what you've done in the past. What have you done for me lately? Well, then there's Roman Polak. Dude takes a puck right to the fotch, and you're just like, oh, there goes all his teeth, busted lip, maybe even a broken orbital bone. We're not going to see him for a while. The thing about a name like Roman Polak is that it sounds badass. And then you see a picture of him and you go, yep, that's what I would expect Roman Polak to look like. And then he takes a puck to the face and comes back with no facial protection. And coming back on the ice, especially with no facial protection with a face that busted up, probably not smart. But it is supremely badass. And after coming back, he was absolutely the reason Trevor Smith was able to score that goal. You know how many people became instant Roman Polak fans last night? I just hope some of those people were on the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I mean, let's not get too excited. Roman Polak, not the best player. And while I don't want to see all the Leafs play with his skill set, I do want to see them play with his badassery. And you don't need to be big, strong Roman Polak. You can be Steven Stamkos taking a Johnny Boychuk bomb right to the schnoz and then come back in Game 7. It means something. You know what it means? Phil Kessel is lazy and got Randy Carlyle fired. Just kidding. No, it doesn't. Here, sit down for a sec. You're going to want to listen to this. Okay, hi. Huddle around. All right, everyone come in. Okay. You're here now. This is okay. You're watching a YouTube video. You are actively participating in this. You can shut me off at any time and stop listening to the things I have to say. Here are the things I have to say. Does Phil Kessel have the best two-way game? No, not really, no. Is Phil Kessel a lazy dick? I don't think someone gets to where Phil Kessel is and produces at the click that Phil Kessel does by being lazy. Bit of a dick? I don't know, I've never met him. You know what? Enough people say it that, you know what, it might be true. Parents, this is your warning. If you got kids in the room and you don't want them to hear swearing, then you have 3, 2, 1. The fact we are talking about Phil Kessel and Phil Kessel alone is fucking astounding. Holy actual Santa Claus Merry Christmas shit. Mike Milbury recently called Phil Kessel an uncoachable pain in the ass because of course Mike Milbury would know a thing or two about ruining a hockey team. This team's problems do not start and end with Phil Kessel. I question whether or not they even start with him. Phil Kessel's gonna get run out of town before David Clarkson does. We've talked about this and I've tweeted about this before. David Clarkson just seems like the nicest person. He takes on a lot of community initiatives, he stays behind after games, even tough losses, and he signs autographs for fans, and he stinks! He's having a bounce back year, certainly a better year than last year, I suppose, and he still has one of the top 5, maybe the top worst contracts in the NHL. As far as coverage of this team goes, I never see that talked about, and as far as this actual team goes, he's still on the friggin' power power play! If you told James Reimer to take his pads off, go out there and play in front of the net like Clarkson does, he would only have 1 fewer point than him this season. Do you realize that? Should Kessel be let off the hook? No, absolutely not. He's this team's best player, their highest paid player. He should be playing like it. But when he falters, how about the team's second highest paid forward steps it up? He can't because he stinks. You gotta take the Glengarry Glen Ross approach. Nice guy, I don't care. Good teammate, screw you. Go play in the American League. This is the National Hockey League, I'm sorry. And I have never played in the National Hockey League, so maybe I shouldn't be saying it, but I'm looking and... And now we get to the Phil Kessel and Dave Feschuk exchange. I'm sure you've all seen it by now. Dave Feschuk goes, "Hey Phil, do you think you're hard to coach?" And Kessel obviously knows what's going on because Dave has written carved pieces on Kessel's before. Kessel gets a little upset, calls Dave an idiot, and it's been all we've talked about for the last 48, probably going on 72 hours now. Fair's fair. We've heard from a bunch of journalists and columnists, and there is a difference, talk about this incident. But the problem for NHL players, who by the way I carve too on a regular basis, is they don't have their own post-game shows. They don't have their time on talk radio to just discuss how awesome they are. They don't have their own YouTube videos where they can yell and scream about how great they are and how stupid I am. So you know what? I thought I would take some initiative. I've been covering hockey since 2009, which granted isn't a very long time, but I've been interviewing players for about that long. You know, coming in contact with guys, getting numbers even from back when they were in junior and now they're in the NHL and yada yada yada. So I've spoken to a few over the last couple days, anonymously obviously, because they don't want to get ripped apart themselves, about what they thought about the Phil Kessel, Dave Feschuk situation. Here are some of the things they said about the Kessel-Feschuk incident, and once again, these are National Hockey League players. I am not making these quotes up. One player said, "We rip on players for talking like robots, and then the second they actually say how they feel, they get ripped for it." There's a lot of ripping going on. Here's another one. "Being constructive is fine, but if you're gonna go out of your way to stick a knife in the guy, and if you continually poke the bear, you gotta expect to be called an idiot once in a while." Here's another one. "The media is frustrating to deal with as a player. You never get the last word as a player, and if you try to defend yourself against criticism, you get labeled as being defensive, which is spun as guilty. The game is played so fast and mistakes are obviously going to happen, so then mistakes are broken down in slow-mo and critiqued by old guys who never played anywhere near the pace that the game is currently played at." And I mean, in fairness, that should also apply to bloggers who can barely skate. Here's another one, and this one's a little more colorful. "I think Feschuk is a piece of shit." Okay, that's his words, not mine. "He's a sports TMZ reporter. He knows exactly what he's doing because the market in TO lives for controversy." So maybe there's something to players not wanting to be Leafs. Lastly, "He knew asking a question like that to Kessel would get a quote or a reaction that would drive his articles. Kessel didn't swear at him and really made some good points about how disrespectful and unprofessional Feschuk has been to players in the past. I'm biased, but I have zero respect for that reporter," he's a columnist, "and clearly aligned more closely with Kessel's point of view. He can ask those questions, but he opens himself up to being called out, or even worse, imagine if the players decided not to answer any more of his questions. He'd never have a quote and everything would be speculative. He has a right to ask questions, but it's so blatantly obvious to the players that he's going to write a piece trashing you that you only get one shot to preventatively defend yourself." Again, those are not my views. Those are the views of multiple National Hockey League players, and if we're going to be fair about this, we should ask them too, shouldn't we? So what do you think? I mean, I thought Elliot Friedman had a pretty balanced view on it. I'll put the link for that below if you want to watch it. Look, regardless of how the next few games go for the Leafs, I imagine they're going to be pretty rough because they're going to play some great teams on the road with a new coach. Here's what I want you to remember. I don't want anybody to blindly accept what people say, and that goes for me too. Because I have my group of friends and I have people I regularly talk to, and then I overhear conversations and it's just bleh, regurgitation about what they hear. The comment box is down below and it's all yours. And when I say yours, I mean yours, you. That's it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like this video, click subscribe if you really like it, tell all your friends, and oh boy, we're only halfway.